The information provided on this podcast is intended to be educational and informational only and is not considered to be formal legal advice. The listener should not take or refrain from taking action based on its content. Any listener in need of legal opinion upon which to rely in decision-making should consider formally engaging an attorney to review relevant facts in detail and examine the pertinent law as it applies to those facts.
Welcome to Real Estate Milestones, where we explore fascinating topics in commercial real estate with knowledgeable industry experts. I'm your host, Ben Malik, and I'm a young real estate professional who is passionate about adding value to people's lives through the incredible power of real estate. My goal is to help you discover what the heck is going on in the industry and how you can get involved. This is Real Estate Milestones, where your future in real estate lies just around the corner. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Real Estate Milestones. Today, we have Travis, who's an experienced real estate investor and managing partner at Freeman Equity with over $40 million in assets under management. He focuses on cash flowing properties to create significant passive income for his investors. He's a software engineer by trade and has spent over 25 years in IT management positions for several Fortune 500 firms, including Apple. So thanks for coming on, Travis. Could you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Sure. Yeah, as you said in my bio, I'm a software engineer by trade. I've been working in IT for quite some time, but I'm also a real estate investor. I started off as, like most people, in the single family realm. I was a single family landlord for over 20 years. Accumulated a pretty substantial portfolio here in Sacramento, California, over 20 single family houses at one time. Went through 2008 and the whole housing bubble. That was a significant learning experience for me. Fortunately, I was able to kind of put things back together and get back on course. In 2019, I was up to here with tenants, toilets, and trouble. I was tired of dealing with single family properties, and a friend of mine actually introduced me to the idea of investing passively in multifamily, in a syndication. So I decided, you know what, I'll take the leap. I'll give it a shot. And what I saw was the ability to enjoy the benefits of investing in real estate without the trouble and better yields based upon where I live and all of the tax benefits. Once I kind of saw how that laid out, it all made sense. From 2019, I started transitioning my single family portfolio and the equity in those properties into multifamily deals. In 2020, I decided I wanted to get more involved in the actual operation side, and I started GPing my own syndication deals. I partnered with a bunch of good guys. In 2020, ended up doing over 500 units syndicated in my core market, which was Kansas City. And then I just started to expand from there. A couple of JV deals in 2021 and an additional syndication. So right now I'm over 830 units under management. And that's from a GP perspective or sponsor perspective. And then from an LP perspective, because I still invest passively in great cash flowing deals, somewhere around 3,000 units that I'm involved with in some shape, form, or fashion. So we're currently closing on a deal in Houston, a 227 unit. This is Class C value add. Workforce housing has been my primary focus. But going forward, there's a lot of things that on the horizon that I'm looking at. Like I said, my company has been primarily focused on multifamily real estate as the kind of sub asset class in commercial real estate, but we're now looking to expand into other areas as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of good stuff to work with. Yeah, that's a lot of units too. That's 3,000 passively is I think maybe the highest number we got on the show so far. So congrats for that. So let's take it back before we go forward. So what was your first milestone in real estate?
In real estate or in multifamily?
Yeah, what was your first milestone in real estate?
Oh, okay. I had just graduated college. I was working for a company called EDS, Electronic Data Systems, and I was getting killed in taxes out here in California. My mother is a single family realtor, she suggested I purchase a piece of real estate to actually live in. So that's what I did in 1992. And I held that property until last year.
Oh, wow. Cool. I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like it probably worked out pretty well.
You know what? And the one thing I say about California is you're definitely going to see some appreciation for sure. So yeah, it wasn't bad. I mean, that's a long hold, but you know, time is the biggest factor in real estate. If you can wait, real estate never disappoints if you can wait long enough.
Yeah, that's why I think my biggest advantage is being 20.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. So yeah, could we talk a little bit more about Kansas City and how you chose that market? And I guess you're probably doing that remotely, but yeah, I mean, so I've heard some murmurs about the market. It sounds pretty good, but I want to hear a little bit more about why you chose it.
Sure. There was one of my partners I worked at Apple with. He eventually ended up leaving and going full time, but he was already acquiring strip malls in the Kansas City area. So he had connections and boots on the ground in the area. So he was the one that really facilitated the introduction to the brokers that we ended up dealing with and the property managers. And once I looked at the demographics, Kansas City's the nickname is the Silicon Prairie. And it really is. You wouldn't know it. I mean, coming from California, I had no idea that I thought Kansas City was, the Midwest and, being out on the left coast, you just assumed everyone else is just, out of the loop. But I was really surprised when I went out there how vibrant the city was. I mean, obviously they have the chiefs, but you could see the growth happening. And that was one of the things, like, they had just rolled out their light rail downtown. You could see, building and construction happening. There were some great submarkets there. And like I said, it checked both the employment growth box and the population growth box, appreciation growth box. There was no way I was gonna, and well, here's the other thing, cap rates were still reasonable. Our first deal, we got at a 6 cap. You're not getting that deal now at a 6 cap.
Yeah, definitely not. It sounds like it's been a trend in a lot of these growth markets where, I mean, it seems like value add is getting squeezed for all of the value that you're adding. We're like, I used to think it's like you're getting the same returns as core, but you're taking on a lot more risk. It's like, that's a little sketchy. And I know it sounds like you might be pivoting to a wider variety of asset classes that might have some more opportunity. So, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about what else you're looking at and, kind of how that solves these problems?
I'll tell you what I've really been looking at. We had an opportunity in 2020. I just passed on it because we had so much going on. I really like self-storage. As a subclass of commercial real estate, we talk about checking the boxes. In up markets or down markets, it doesn't matter, right? In up markets, people are accumulating things, right? Those things have to go somewhere. In down markets, people are downsizing. Well, guess what? The things they accumulate have to go somewhere. In 2008, when people were losing their homes left and right, a lot of times they couldn't sell the stuff, right? So the stuff went where? When people get divorced, somebody moves out of the house. Where does their stuff go? All of these boxes that get checked by self-storage. And the other thing that I really like about self-storage is your relationship to the tenant is different. In multifamily, you're dealing with the tenant actually living in the unit. So you have wear and tear on the asset. There are all these other considerations. There's evictions that you have to go through when there's problems. Well, in self-storage, you got a metal box and a metal door, right? And 60 days, if they don't pay their storage fee, well, guess what? Their stuff's up for auction and you move on. When you factor those things in, and then coming from a technology background, I'm always looking for ways to kind of improve process. There have been some technological leaps in self-storage that are absolutely amazing. There's self-storage not too far from here where there is literally no one at the self-storage facility. No one. You have an app on your phone. If you don't pay your storage bill, your unit doesn't open. And if you want to get in, you better get on your Apple Pay, you make your payment, all of a sudden the unit opens. So being able to add that type of process is something that excites me, because there's a lot of self-storage facilities out there that are still mom and pop run. It's still, some old guy and his wife that has owned the place for, 30 years, and they're still, they're doing everything manually. So the ability to get in and add those processes is what really makes self-storage interesting to me.
Yeah, I really
Love
like
it.
I mean, I'm really interested in it too. I think that from a macroeconomic level, the fact that the leases are very short and you could raise them each month is huge in an inflationary environment where you can adjust to that. And then it's also not very people are not very sensitive to the price, where you can raise it by 5%, where in a multifamily that would be like, wow, like it's a couple $100 more a month. Here it's it's $5, $10. It's people don't, I guess from an inflationary point of view, people are, the hassle of an extra $5 a month is not worth switching to a different storage unit. So I like that fluidity, or that relationship with the tenant as well. And then, I mean, yes, I know there's some pretty cool value adds that you can run, like collaborating with U-Haul and like, adding some extra storage or some extra capacity in that sense. And I like even RV storage too, adding some more storage in that, or other kinds of storage. Cause I mean, there's a lot of trends to ride in that industry. I don't want to be an investment advisor to people on the podcast. So the downside would be, I guess the barriers to entry are lower. People can build one across the street and significantly affect your business, which is one of the biggest problems, I think. So you got to make sure it's not an oversaturated market.
That's important. And there's another positive. One of the things that I'm seeing in the industry as well is this whole concept of trade units. Now, that may be impacted by the macro going forward, but right now, there are, particularly if you're buying units that have additional property attached, you can make significant income building out trade units. And these are basically units that tradesmen actually use as kind of workshops. There's a lot of upside in those. And, worst case scenario, if they begin to no longer need those trade units, well, then you just convert them back over to self-storage and keep it rolling.
Yeah, when it's just a metal box, there's a lot more flexibility.
Exactly.
You don't have to move out a kitchen and a oven and whatever.
Right.
And bed frames and all that stuff. It's just, cool. I'm glad we went into the weeds on this one. That's really interesting.
No problem.
Sweet. So I know you have some interesting quotes relating to I guess due diligence and I guess underwriting too. But can you start with those and what they mean to you, and then tell us a little bit about your due diligence process for your deals?
Sure. I'm a firm believer that that men lie, women lie. These numbers, they don't lie. Now you can massage them. I'm not gonna lie. There are people that do some very interesting things with their performance, but generally speaking, from a due diligence perspective, I tend to err on the side of conservative underwriting, but I also marry that with a realistic view of whatever market that I'm in, right? So I'm not super pessimistic on anything, and it's the reason I was buying in the midst of COVID. I mean, literally, we were doing multiple acquisitions in 2020 when the streets were empty in a lot of places. So I'm not necessarily adverse to the risk as long as the data, provides evidence that my assessment of things is accurate. So in terms of the way I underwrite deals, because my firm is investor driven, so I am an investor first before I'm anything else. And in order to make sure there's an alignment between myself and my investors, every deal that I bring to my investors, I invest in personally. I feel like I kind of have to. Now, I'm not making a judgment around folks that don't, but I know for me, it changes the lens that I look at investments through if I am on the hook some kind of way for some of my own capital. So with that in mind, my mentor was a really probably too conservative, but the model that I use now is it's focused on the returns that my investors expect in this current market and a realistic projection of both, what the market is going to do, as well as the abilities of the operator if we're talking about multifamily.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, the fact that you invest alongside your clients is a huge deal. I mean, I guess one advantage of syndication is that you have the opportunity to invest in these huge deals. And so like you're finding good deals for yourself, but also want to do it for helping others. And then you can't even do it without them too. So it's like it works a lot. And the thing is, I bet you some of your stockbrokers are investing with Travis when putting you in the stock market where they get their commission. So I mean, it definitely shows the alignment of interest in real estate, and syndication especially is a lot stronger than some other investment platforms. So
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that's definitely a huge advantage. And I guess I am a strong believer that the past doesn't necessarily reflect the future, and a lot of circumstances it doesn't. And so I'm really against plugging in the growth rate the last year and saying that's going to be the growth rate next year. I'm like, the fact that it was that last year is why it can't be this year. But I want to know how you inform these future models that don't actually align to data. I mean, yeah, there's trends, there's other things, but like, how do you adjust these future projections based on circumstance? Like, how do you input reality into number?
Good question. I'm old school in this regard, but I don't invest in things I cannot see with my own eyes, generally speaking, at least as it relates to real estate. So that means, regardless of whether or not I'm investing as an LP, I'm a sponsor, or not. Like, I'm actually going to see the asset. I'm going to meet with the property manager. I'm going to the submarket so that I understand at a visceral level what's happening from a boots on the ground standpoint. To me, it's the numbers provide a great kind of framework for you to see things through. But I want to, like I said, I'm old school. I want to drive by at night. These are the types of things that it's very hard to kind of quantify, like, on a spreadsheet, but we live in the real world. So these are things that are important, at least to me and my investors.
Yeah, that's definitely important. I mean, like, the amount of things that don't show up on a spreadsheet that could affect an investment is, I mean, just that's one thing. Like, every investment has inherent risk, because just like you like anything could happen. It's the world. So I mean, that's definitely a very important perspective that we definitely should take that advice. So yeah, I appreciate that. And I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about your experience in tech and your long history in tech, and kind of how your being a software engineer informs your, I guess, your real estate models, but also just your investing philosophy.
It's funny. Most engineers I know are risk on. I think it's just the nature of the work. But with that being said, what it means is I apply kind of, to use Elon's term, first principle thinking. I try to apply it everywhere. So what that means is at least for me, is I'm looking for ways to create repeatable processes around the investments that I get involved with. So I'm looking, like, for example, anytime we do a deal, I'm looking for space on the asset where I can set up storage units for the tenants. I'm surprised everybody doesn't do this. Like, it is every multifamily deal I've ever walked, there's always been people with a bunch of stuff outside. And what that tells me is that they needed some place to store their stuff, right? So from a technology standpoint, though, what I'm looking at is okay, how can I streamline process to drive NOI? So when I look at if the laundry's there, right? Is the laundry automated, right? Are we going with a contract vendor, or are we actually coming in with our own, with our own machines? From a tenant management standpoint, what is the software package that the property manager is actually using? Are we accepting cash? Like, there's all of these things that I applied through my algorithm when I'm looking to try to figure out how I can dial in, you reduce expenses and dial in NOI as much as possible, because the name of this game is either increase rents or decrease expenses. So you want to do one of those two things in order to ultimately try to reach your performer, which nobody ever does, but I try to at least overperform, ideally.
Yeah, definitely helps to under promise, over deliver. Definitely is a good way of having repeat business and customers and growing. And I'm into transparency and honesty, and I think that's definitely a key to it as well. So I guess, what kind of technology have you been seeing that reduces costs, or I guess maybe also value add technology where people are willing to pay more for it?
Well, there's a couple of things. Right now, kind of contract service bundles are really big, right? So if you can kind of loop in, cable, broadband, and provide that as a service, one of the things that we've been doing on some of our assets is actually including that in with the overall rents for the tenant. So the way we structure our deals is it appears to be free, right? It is, but the tenant is actually paying for it as part of the way we model the process. And then we're also looking at, depending on the asset, obviously a C-class asset is not going to be, you're not going to have nearly the technology stack that you have in an A-class, for instance, right? Where you can have automated door locks and apps that control the lights. And there's so many different levels, but obviously the tenant base has to kind of support that level of automation. But yeah, there's a lot of different opportunities in that space that I think are really interesting, from automated payments to the ability to accept multiple payments during the month for rents. There's a lot of different avenues that you can actually pursue there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And my goal, or what I see myself doing in the future, is creating multifamily properties that cater to my generation, and in terms of the technology and the things that I value. So I want to not necessarily have the biggest, most luxurious units, but has everything that we want as young business professionals who have to get by with not the largest salaries yet, but like things like an Amazon locker and maybe smart thermostats, and definitely things to make the ambiance cool, and just like I want to make a place rather than just make a brick building where you put yourself at night and do cook food on the weekends. I want it to be a place where you enjoy being, and that's I think the value can transcend the functional technical ways or things, and I guess attractions and the actual components of the piece. It's more like, what I want to create a bigger sum than the sum of the parts, right? Yeah,
right. You want to experience. Yeah, I get it, man.
Definitely.
I was young once.
Yeah. Right. Well, I don't know, you seem pretty young at heart, at least.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely. So regarding technology, what are some of the, beyond the asset level, what are some of the technologies within the space that I guess, what are some technologies in the world that you think are the future?
Okay. Coming from a software background, I am a huge fan of blockchain technology And I'm a huge fan of the idea of these applications as it relates to real estate, especially. If you look at like the process of a title exchange in real estate, there are so many manual touch points, and that process is painfully long. I envision a day in the very near future where everything from inspection to lender underwriting to funding to title transfer happens. I don't want to say instantaneously, but certainly within a day. Like it's ridiculous how long it takes to close some of these assets, and that's because there's so much manual process in place. So the other thing that I see is right now when you're doing syndications, it's a relatively heavy process just in terms of your interaction with SEC attorneys and the legal entity that has to get created, and then the interaction between the legal entity and the lender and the seller and the broker. Well, I envision, and it's already starting to happen, not only the tokenization of real estate, but I envision in a relatively short time frame, I'm thinking, by next year, you're going to see, full DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations spring up that you're going to be able to buy tokens in those DAOs and in effect have a share of ownership in a piece of real estate. It's just a matter of time. And what that will do is lawyers make all of the money in most of these deals. Like, what they charge for, don't get mad at me.
My mom's a real estate lawyer, by the way.
Okay, what they charge, so she's done well, right? What they charge for mostly boilerplate 506c offerings, let's just say, for the most part, the cost could be drastically reduced. And you would have instant transparency across the board too, because that's the other thing, right? Investors typically have to have a high level of trust in the operator. But imagine a scenario where distributions are handled via the DAO. So contract, right? Basically, the smart contract is what dictates the value of your underlying tokens. And here's the next part of this. Right now, syndications are relatively illiquid, meaning if you have interest in a multifamily deal, good luck getting somebody to either buy that from you or to secure debt against it. Good luck. There's not really a real marketplace for it. But imagine a DEX where you could actually, look, I got a 10% stake in this piece of real estate. Here's the token for it. You could provide liquidity, or someone could provide liquidity for it, and you now have a market for exchanging interest in real estate. I think that is the next big thing. I don't know if anybody that's working on it, feel free to steal the idea if you want to. But I think there's a lot of potential in things like that as it relates to smart contracts and the blockchain.
I think there's definitely has to be people working on it, because I've independently thought of the similar topic, because I'm thinking about it from a different perspective, because I'm like, right now the barriers to entry are very high. Almost all these offers, I look at a lot of deals. I'm on email lists for a lot of syndicators, and I see these. It's like 506c. It's like, okay, well, I don't make $200,000 a year for the last 2 years. How am I going to get in on this? So it's like, you can make tokens and then incrementally like break them down into smaller and smaller pieces, where I could put $100 in a deal through a token, or by buying a piece of a token, or by breaking the tokens down into indivisibly small pieces, essentially. So I think that kind of and that's beneficial for liquidity, but also democratizing this private real estate space, where it's kind of, at this point, SEC regulations restrict it to people who are in the top 5%, essentially, with the accredited investor qualifications. So I think that's a really important something that's great about this emerging technology.
Absolutely.
And yeah, just to kind of clarify the smart contract thing, it's when you put your money in an escrow account, you have to trust an intermediary to pay it out based on some circumstances that occur. When you have a smart contract, these things execute based on the qualifications that are predetermined and transparent. So it's like, if I do not pay my mortgage, the title gets instantly transferred to this person, and it happens, and no judge or agent has to decide this. It just happens based on the circumstance. So that kind of smart contract thing, like the concept, dramatically decreases the cost of transacting, and also increases the, I guess, even trust and transparency in many circumstances. Obviously, if it's applied right. Yeah.
And here's the other thing that I would really like to see. Right now, in the DeFi space, borrowing and lending, I mean, those two activities take up a significant amount of DeFi currently. But imagine now being able to collateralize a loan using a piece of real estate. So,
already the best way to do it.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So, and you're doing it in a way that's, as you mentioned before, it's trustless, right? The asset is collateralizing the loan, but as opposed to going through the process of this huge refi, imagine being able to, like, as I mentioned earlier, I have a 10% interest in a syndication. I may want to keep this, but I want to borrow against that 10% interest. That's a lending platform where you're bringing real world assets and crypto together. It's got to be done. Someone has to do it.
Yeah. I've heard of some projects working on it actually, and it's definitely important because it's no one can run away. If you lend someone money, no one can run away with it because it's stuck in an actual protocol. Like there's nowhere in the world where this can't happen. Like this happens not in the world, there's no escrow agent that can die and forget what what's happening. I don't know if that's how it works, but I mean, it's trustless. So that's really cool.
No bankruptcy. Yeah. There's no, the contract is the contract.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what contracts are supposed to be anyway. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Great. Well, this is a really cool topic, and I hope some people who are listening go farther down this rabbit hole, because there's, a lot more interesting things to talk about, and maybe you could have this conversation more in the future, definitely. But let's jump to the lightning round. You ready?
Let's go. Let's do it.
Perfect. All right. So what superpower would you want if you could choose any?
Telekinesis.
Cool. I'm trying to see how that would apply to real estate.
Well, the ability to move things.
To build houses.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I love applying these superpowers to real estate. Like we got super speed. It's comp man. You can make sure the roof's not broken or whatever. But yeah. That's a good one. So what's your favorite book, or what's the one that's helped you the most?
Man, there's so many. Let me tell you what's really helped me lately, because I got it right here. I've actually read it.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because I'm in, I come from
for people who are on audio, we should mention the name.
Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. An amazing book, particularly if you're like me and you think you can do everything yourself. The leverage that you're able to get by bringing in folks to actually do the things that they're experts in frees you up to do the things that are really important. I can't recommend the book enough. I've hired VAs based on it. Like things I would normally do, I just offload them because they should be done. And it allows me to. The other book, I hate to mention too, The One Thing, Gary Keller, and these two books kind of go together. The One Thing tells you to focus on the one thing that is truly important, and realizing that multitasking is an illusion. No one multitasks. You can context switch poorly, but nobody can do more than one thing at a time. It just doesn't happen. So you take the one thing and then who, not how, and they go together, right? You're able to focus on the one thing when you're able to delegate tasks to the people that need to do them.
Yeah, that's great. And the example I always use is if you want to close on a real estate deal, are you going to spend 3 years getting a law degree and then do it? Or are you going to hire a lawyer? And just that
Good
concept
point.
is, yeah. So, I mean, and you clearly love to hire lawyers because, you're willing to pay for them.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, I mean,
I
if
don't.
their price wasn't right, then no one would pay it. So,
Yes, you know what? You got a good point. You need them when you need them.
right. Well, that's it. So, what motivates you to continue every day?
Oh, that's easy. I recently had a grandchild, but my focus now is generational wealth. That is my primary focus. It's why I still work, because the idea that I can improve the situation for my descendants is super motivating for me. So I want my grandchildren to be able to pursue the things that bring them joy, not a paycheck.
Yeah, that's a great great why. And I'm a little young to think like that, but I already see it. I already think about it all the
Yeah.
time. So yeah, I don't really think age is a
You
factor
will.
in that dream,
Yep.
Yeah, cool. So what advice would you give to someone who wants to follow in your footsteps?
Oh, network. Even if you're introvert, that network and learn how to speak publicly. Those, I know I keep doing two things as opposed to one, but networking, I feel, is really the difference between those that are really successful and can scale and those that can't.
Yeah, that's good advice. And part of the reason why I started a podcast before starting, my whatever business I'm going to end up starting.
Right.
So, and it's been a great journey. I've learned a lot from a lot of amazing people.
Cool.
So since I put you on the spot, I want to give you a chance for revenge. So feel free to ask me anything you want to know about me.
Okay, so you're at that age where the decisions that you make have a ripple effect on the rest of your life. So what is it that you would do if money was no object? What would you do?
So give me a little bit more. You mean if
Sure.
Yeah.
What I don't want to say what is your purpose, but if you never had to work again for money, I mean, maybe you're in that situation now, I don't know, but what would you do for free from a vocation standpoint?
You know what? Honestly, I might cut off a couple of things I'm doing that are less important, but pretty much what I'm doing, I'm gonna have a podcast where I could add value to the world through knowledge and education, share my wisdom and whatever I learned in my journey, and be open and be myself. I think it's to me, it's the same thing. I want to invest in real estate. It's a game, I really enjoy looking at properties, and I want to build things, and I want things to be there. It's like, it's not even, if you don't even think about for money, I still want to have a thing that I built here and it adds value to the world.
Yeah.
It's there. So I actually had not ever put this together, but I really am setting myself up on a trajectory where money is not even the object. It's the value I'm creating for the world. I believe I will get compensated because I'm going to make intelligent decisions along the way, but it's really about the value I'm creating. And so, I mean, I guess pretty much, yeah. I continue to network. I'm starting a real estate networking group in New Orleans, and I get energy from talking to other people, and I learn a lot. So I continue doing that. So I think I would definitely want to start my my nonprofit or my foundation. That's what I could do if I already had the money to fully do so. I'd want to cure blindness, and put a lot of money into research for that, because I think it's underrepresented in terms of the causes that people devote a lot of time and energy to, because I think that can really improve a lot of people's lives through the change to helping a blind man see. So that's a little glimpse into all that good stuff.
Right on.
Cool. So Travis, it's been a pleasure having you on. It's been a really fun episode. Definitely learned a lot. I think we shared a lot of value with the audience.
Thank you.
How could we learn, or how could the audience learn more about you, and where can they find you?
Sure. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm just now getting into TikTok. You can go to Freeman Equity, or you can look for Travis Gibson as well. On LinkedIn, it's Travis Gibson. There's actually two profiles. There's my engineering profile and my investing profile. Either will work. And or you can hit me via email at travis@freemanequity.com. And and here's the other thing I want to leave everyone with is being your authentic self is the only real gift you have to give to the world, because everything else already exists. So embrace who you are, flaws and all. It's the only way we make this world a better place. The world already has somebody else, but what they don't have is you.
A lot. I appreciate that, and I definitely take that to heart, and I hope everyone does too. Well, Travis, thanks for this wisdom and all the other wisdom you shared with us today. And everyone, keep making milestones. All right.
Have a good one.